I'm Major General Henry William Stisted. History knows me more as the first Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Canada. I took part in the capture of the fortress of Kalat on 13th November 1839 as a lieutenant. I was then only 22 years old. In the northern part of Balochistan stands the strong mountain fortress of Kalat. The chief, Mehrab Khan, had offended the British, and it was resolved to annex his territories to the kingdom of Shah Soojah. Kalat is a place of commanding strength. The citadel rises high above the buildings of the town. On the northwest of the fort are 3 heights. On these the Khan had posted his infantry, supported by 5 guns in position. General Willshire was sent to capture it, with the 2 NT and 17 TH Queen's Regiments, the 31st Bengal Native Infantry, with 2 howitzers, 4 of the Shah's 6-pounder guns, and a detachment of local horse. On the morning of the 13th of November he found himself before the place. The engineer officers reported that, until the heights were carried, it would be impossible to proceed against the fortress. Accordingly orders were issued for the attack. It was Willshire's hope that the enemy might be driven down to the gate of the fortress, and that the stormers might rush in with them. Gallantly our brave soldiers made their way up the heights. Gallantly they were carried, and right nobly the guns were captured. The shrapnel, shot from Stevenson's batteries, fell with too deadly an aim among the Balochi footmen for them to hold their position on the hills. They fled towards the walls of their fortress, and the British infantry pushed hotly after them, but, in spite of all their exertions, our brave soldiers were not in time to secure an entrance. The gates were closed against their advance. The enemy's artillery, planted on the walls, was now brought into play. The British infantry were compelled to find shelter behind some ruined buildings, while our batteries, planted on the heights, opened upon the gate and the neighboring defenses. 2 of Cooper's guns were brought within 200 yards of the walls. The gunners suffered much from the matchlocks of the enemy, but undauntedly continued to fire full upon the gate. At length, it gave way. Pointing his hand towards the gateway, Willshire boldly rode down to show the infantry that an entrance was ready for them. Rising at once from their cover, with a loud hurrah, they rushed on. Pennykick and his men were the first to enter. The other companies eagerly followed, till the whole of the storming column were within the walls of Kalat. Onward, they struggled manfully towards the citadel. Every inch of ground was obstinately disputed. The citadel was reached, but there was here a desperate resistance. Sword in hand, Mehrab Khan and some of his principal chiefs stood to give battle to their enemies. The Khan himself fell dead, with a musket ball through his breast. 8 of his principal sardars fell beside him. Heaps of dead lay around, many fine-looking men, their shields shot through and broken, swords and matchlocks scattered about in every direction, telling of the fierce fight. A small party held out in an inner apartment. There was no reaching them, except by a narrow passage, which admitted but of one at a time. 3 or 4 attempted it, and were instantly shot dead. The little band of Balochis would not trust the British. At length Lieutenant Loveday was sent up to them alone. It was a critical moment for him, but they listened to his proposals, and surrendered. And Kalat was won. The British lost being 138 killed and wounded. Mehrab Khan died fighting gallantly, and by late afternoon, the fighting in the town was over, as the few desperate men, who still held out, were persuaded to give themselves up on the promise of their lives being spared. Mehrab Khan had managed to send away all his harem and family on the morning of the battle, but most of the other chiefs, not being so fortunate, deliberately cut the throats of all the females belonging to them when the fortress fell. rather than allow them to be taken with it. Mehrab Khan had 2,000 men under his command. Some escaped, others were killed or wounded, and many were taken prisoner. General Willshire's force lost 138 killed and wounded, of which a quarter were from the Queen's. Among the Queen's officers severely wounded were Lieutenant Holdsworth and the adjutant, Lieutenant Simmons. It had been a highly successful action against an enemy superior in numbers and one which reflected great credit on all the regiments involved.